Awesome. I think we're recording. All right. Well, welcome to the Pet Life Podcast. As always, I am Patrick, and today on Father's Day, we are here with Mr. Anchor Bear. What's up, man?
Hey, how's it going?
It's going well, man. How's your Father's Day going?
It's good. It's good. A lot. We just kind of did some work around the house, some projects, which is what better way to celebrate is to just kind of do some work and show your worth, I guess, around the house. I don't like celebrating it too much. I think it's kind of like flashy. I feel like
Right.
it's more of a Mother's Day to just kind of like, you got to blow that up, but for the Father's Day, just kind of keep it, low key. I mean, it's not
Totally.
about you really, so
Yeah.
at least that's what I think.
Yeah.
Kids made me the father, right?
Yeah. Well, it's always nice when you just get more than anything, just a family time.
Oh yeah,
And it's just like little things, like you said, just doing stuff around the house or just having some. We just got back from a family beach time, so
that's nice.
it's nice. Yeah, it's just nice to do stuff like that. But yeah, man, I just wanted to bring you on for multiple reasons. But one of the big things that I've been enjoying about what you've been putting out there is your music, man. So if we can kind of just start there and talk, man. So? How long you been doing the music? Is this what you work in the music industry? What kind of things are you willing to share with us and kind of your
Yeah.
story?
Yeah, so I never really truly worked in the music industry in the fact that I made a living. I mean, I tried it for a long time. I was in a band, started in Chicago, in Atlanta now. In Chicago, there's like this huge pop punk scene. I know I just released that, pop punk cover, which I grew up like doing all that type of music, and that's what I was trying to pursue.
Did you grow up in
Um,
Chicago?
I grew up in Chicago, yeah, like
Where
well,
about?
suburbs. So like, let's see, like right by Naperville, Downers Grove. So
I'm in Downers Grove.
yeah, no way. Yeah,
Yeah, dude. I
that's
grew
cool.
up born and raised in Downers Grove.
Yeah, no shit.
Too
Yeah,
funny.
yeah. I mean, you can't be the same Patrick Daly that went to North though, right?
It's 100% me.
No fucking way, dude. I knew you looked similar, but I cannot believe you're an actual bear and you do the same shit. So that's crazy.
Dude, that's so
Isn't that
funny.
insane? Dude, you're not the first person I met this way though, either. My
Dude,
wife has someone in Tinley Park she like grew up with, and he's like she's one of her best friends, and they're doing the same path that we're doing.
dude,
With
that
all the
is.
you know me, dude. Yeah.
Dude, I absolutely know you. But we're gonna
Yeah.
talk when we get off here. And
Oh, totally. Yeah.
dude, because I saw your name, I was like,
Yeah.
how do I know this name?
You did, yeah, dude. I knew your name as soon as I saw your last name, but yeah, I didn't know if it was the same because, like, I mean, you've gone through different, stages of life too, I'm sure, and you could probably talk to that. But
Yeah, for sure, man. Well, dude, but this is what I think is so great. Let's just kind of sidetrack for a second. The beauty of small town, or I mean,
oh yeah,
small world in regards to building community when you get people just starting to come together and you realize it's such a close knit in reality.
yeah, yeah.
Wow,
It's like a
so funny.
wavelength thing. I think it's definitely some kind of synchronicity in like a big scale, because like a lot of people go different ways and they always like end up coming like the people who are like on the same path like
Hmm.
always hit each other again. So it's like
Yep.
that's how I felt with music as well. It's like when I was on this music path, I'd run into people who there's like we saw some dude and like I don't know if I want to drop a name yet
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
about him, but like I saw this dude going down he was like on an airplane and my wife was leaving at the same time, and like we've known this guy for like heavy in the music industry for like years, and there's
Mhm.
no way that these two paths would cross because it's like like airplanes, like all this kind of thing. They're
Yeah,
going
yeah.
at the same airport same time, and like it's one of our best friends in the music industry, and we catch him right before he's about to go on a plane. It's like
Wow.
that shit that happens is like mind-blowing to me. So it's like you're right, the small world thing is like insanely small world.
Dude. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's so funny that you say that just because even when you like, I mean, I went to New York out of high school and did all this stuff. And I just remember I was at work and I was at a gym that I was working at, and I had a Downers t-shirt, a sweatshirt, and a lady stopped me, a random lady. She was like, "Oh, I went to North too." And just like you start realizing it's big world, but in reality, when you start, as you were saying earlier, you start people on the same wavelengths, people kind of same paths. You start to see how things kind of come full circle, and or as Owen would say, and other people would say, is those synchronicities.
Oh
And
yeah.
dude,
Yeah, dude, definitely. That shit is like mind blowing to me too, because like every time he mentions some kind of energy shift, where it's like, dude, I've been feeling down, or I feel like it's the same type. Like he mentioned that this week on his Instagram, he's like, I don't know if I want to do it anymore. I feel the
mhm,
same, like kind of burnout, this vibe. Dude, I feel the same way. When he mentions that, I'm on the same thing with music. I'm like, should I even put out new music? Like, is this
Mhm.
working? Is this like the path I want to go down? So,
Right.
it's like it's great to see when people are open and honest with each other and they're not trying to hide behind a like facade.
Right.
Like then you can really get to these synchronicities. And I think the biggest part too is turn off the TV because like
Yeah.
as soon as you have the input of TV, you're on that frequency and you're thinking about the same problems that those people are thinking about. And
Yep.
as soon as you turn that off, you let God come into your life and like start speaking to you in a way that
Yeah.
like will put the connections together that need to be connected
Yep.
naturally rather than falsely through this like this global empire of technology, which is crazy.
Well, right. Well, what it's doing is a lot of times is when you turn off the TV, turn off your news. What you're doing is you said connecting with God, but it's really you're with self again. You're allowing yourself
Yes.
to actually be present with who you are. And this is something that's why in the bear community I go as present awareness bear, just because it's about learning how for all of us. It doesn't matter what you believe in. It doesn't even matter sides, whatever. It's like if you can be present with yourself, know what that feels like, know how to feel comfortable with it, thrive, then build, find your potential. What then you do is as we always talk about, work on yourself to then order to help others. That's truly the path. It seems like it's complicated, but it's really simple. It's just it's gonna ask a lot of you or people when they start to do it, and that obviously is where people start to get hesitant, because you start to have to face the realities of who you are, things that you've done, things that you haven't done, whatever the case is. And as you said, when people are in that same wavelength and start to connect with one another, it's really just so many people are so present, but with present comes stillness. We talk about polarities all the time. And as I said, when you're in the present moment, you're in what they call the flow state, or Barnett will say all
Yes.
the time.
Yeah.
And that flow state really is actually above the polarity, and it's that stillness, which is connection, to source, God, whatever people want to call it.
Right.
And
Yeah.
you have
And it
enough
doesn't have
tools.
to, yeah. And that the thing is like I think a lot of people get argumentative and almost like I've heard arguing semantics when it comes to God or
Mhm.
Jesus or like what was he here, and then like to say the special word thing that Owen goes off about it, I really do agree with. It's like you just sometimes people just have this locked set that they've been brainwashed into, and they're like, I need you to say these words, otherwise you're not.
Mhm.
And words are so funny because words can change over time. Words can be
Totally.
graveled. Words can be extrapolated into whatever nonsense they want. And we're seeing that all the time with, a lot of like, liberal people where they'll take a word and they'll just slowly pivot into a
Mhm.
point where it's not even reflective. And, I love when people pull up the old dictionaries and go like line by line and say, look, what was it? It was 40 years ago. Look
Yeah.
what it is now. Like those. So when it comes to religion and words, I think a lot of people like get stuck up on like, well, you have to say this phrase. And it's
Mhm.
like, or you have to call it this thing. Like, oh, Allah doesn't mean like God. It's like,
Right.
and then you talk to a Muslim, you're like, we're all in my opinion, we're all praying to the same God,
Yeah.
and I think that's it, and it's when you come to that and you say like, oh, okay, and then you say return to source, and then people are like, well, now you sound, that's not the way I want to talk about it. It's like, but it's still the same concept, and that's I think what people need to bring it back to, and that's what I really like about using religious as a foundational aspect, and like I kind of want to go get into that a little bit more, later in the episode probably, but just like
Yeah.
just that religious foundation of like morality and like the difference that like the difference between like using like just rationalizing morality. I think that's a big difference for me when I'm looking at a lot of people on like influencers. I'm like, why do these people stick out from these other people? And I can
Totally.
totally make sense and relate to these people when it comes to an influencer, and then like totally not relate at all to these other people. I think it has to do with just the morality. You have to have a baseline morality,
Yep.
and say that it comes from some externalized, divine, it's been instilled with you, and you can't rationalize morality in itself, because if you do that, then like you're really susceptible to anything of changing moralities over time, which you see a lot in like the Twitter wars, the cancel culture. You have like these changing who dictates the morality. Is it
Totally.
democratic? Is it capitalism? Is it
Mhm.
these political value, like the strongest political aspects can then dictate your morality if you don't have a source of morality. So that's where big
Right.
religion comes in. That's why it's so important to me, and that's what really returned me back to Christianity.
Dude, it's all great stuff, man. And
Yeah.
that's part of what it was for me too, is, and it has been for me, because obviously for me it's still been a journey, is just, you know, when you're hearing so much noise all the time all around you of what's right, what's wrong from other people, right? when you lose that connection with God, and you're just trying to find your path, you're just trying to get your answers from other men, other women, and that's part of the journey in itself. Things are going to change over time, and you're like, wait, but something still doesn't feel right. Something doesn't in my gut. And this is something I was talking to Mayfair as we were just kind of going back and forth on a post, was that, you know, when you talk about you know, just true morality, it can come to following just your intuition, you know, because you can look at something, for example, and be like, oh man, yeah, everyone's telling me that's okay, but my gut tells me otherwise.
Yes. Yeah.
And so that's the thing is it's going back to what I was saying about present awareness and self. It's really knowing that when you are back with who you are, truly who you are, you really are in connection with God. You know, God is there. And I think that for me, obviously having my son, you know, starting a family, just kind of having this new lens, you know, crossing over my eyes and realizing, whoa, this is all out there, and all those things up into this point or up into that point where my gut was telling me things, intuition was kicking in, and just finally paying attention to it, you start to go, oh, that was what that was. And it just, for me at least, it was just a breath of fresh air, because now when you listen to and you hear things changing, words with different meanings, now you can kind of filter it out so much easier, because you go, what is my gut telling me? What is my intuition here saying? And then obviously when you have people on that those same wavelengths, community, you kind of feel each other. You feel that connection of going, you're getting it. We're feeling that
exactly.
together.
And I think the most important part too is, like, you know, there is some kind of intuition too when it comes to, like, it's not strictly just, you know, I might piss some people off by this, but you know, Christianity itself, like, can be very doctoral, and it can be very, like, written in a book. You have to follow it this way. But if you use your logic, like, you have to, like, and I said this on another podcast I was on with Sean, who, he did a great job. But, and I know he's super, you know, into that path, and we were talking about it, and it's like, well, you still have to, like, use testimony. In my opinion, you have to use like, all these things are testaments, right? You have the Old Testament, you have the New Testament, you have testimony from everybody. And in the court of law, and I had a brief time where I went, you know, worked at a law office, and I went through this path of, like, trying to be you know, some kind of court reporter, and learning all these, like, terminologies about what happens in depositions, so, and in trial. And the one important thing is, like, you have testimony, but you have to use your rationale to determine what's consistent, and, you know, like, and what, so, like, if something seems out of place, do you just assume that it's correct because it's written down, or do you look at it at the, you know, grand scheme of things and say, does this follow with what is everybody else has been saying, and does it ring true universally? So, like, you know, a lot of people, like, won't use that discernment, and that's very important, is, like, to use the discernment and say, does this really keep consistent with, like, the idea of being fruitful and multiplying, and what everybody else has been saying in these other scriptures, and or does it seem like a one-off weird thing that doesn't make sense in the whole global scheme of what they were trying to say? And I think people use the Bible as, like, as kind of like an argumentative points when they start picking the single lines, and they say, well, look at this line. I'm going to use this to debunk the entire Bible. It's like, you can't do that because it's a testimony. It's a whole entire book. That's like saying, I'm going to use one line of an entire court case to argue the entire court case. In my opinion, it makes no sense. And I think you're, like, over extrapolating on that.
Totally, man. So here, let me ask you this then. Why is it that, from your point of view, so many people have this discernment and they're trying to find nitpicks? Why do you think that's so?
I think they have a preconceived notion, and I think a lot of people get comfortable with like the preconceived notion, and they don't like to change. I think people, when presented with, and you've seen this too, it's like when you're presented with new information, you have to reevaluate, and you have to really look at different sources. And I think a lot of people have a traditional, you know, timeline where they're saying, I've learned this since I was a baby. My kid, it's culturally instilled in me that this is the way I, you know, and it's actually, that's a good thing that people are kind of skeptical, because I think cultural, like, norms are fine, but when it comes to the point where, like, everybody in it, there's got to be free thinkers in a society that say, we got to push the norms and say, like, what does it make sense? And sometimes that makes people uncomfortable when they've been doing it the same way for, like, 30 plus years, and they're like, I'm not ready to change my mindset. My family learned this. You know, it's just that's tradition. So, but when you have people who are open-minded and who can look at the facts and be like, I want to actually not just repeat what my elders say, I want to review these things with other people who have been and like that's the other thing too is like a lot of people just are so lazy with their research. I've had arguments with my family members, with my, with friends
Yeah.
that I'm like, don't you care that this is here? And they're like, no, I don't care. Like they want to shut down the conversation early because they don't want to engage with the possibility of being wrong because it's too much work on their end. So
Yeah.
I think it all, as Owen would say, it has to do a lot with the pornos, has a lot to do with the media. It has to do a lot with the overall status of like, I have other things to do with my free time than argue, religion. Right. So they're willing to step out of that comfort zone.
Totally.
They're not willing to.
Go on.
No, I was just gonna say they're not willing to. I was just trying to correct myself, but
yeah, and it's the important thing that you're saying here, and that we've been talking about in this community, but also just more people now in general I hear, is just that is going, all right, hey, if something doesn't make sense, not just turning off the people who are talking about it. I mean, we might not be talking about it to them specifically. We could be talking to somebody else and they're just overhearing it, or they might hear, you say one or two things here and there. And I am at least seeing now on a positive side, more people are finding themselves willing to maybe not accept it, but they're willing to hear it a little bit more, or they're willing to be open-minded to at least some of the things, right? Like, okay, I can see this part, but I still haven't fully grasped the other things. I don't know if you've experienced any of that with people.
Yeah, I have. I think where I was kind of my mind went when you're talking right there. It's just kind of like we live in a time where I think a lot of people are scared, not only because I don't mean like us, our new generation are actually really embracing this technology, but social media has been like a blessing. And I know a lot of people rail against social media saying you shouldn't be on there because it's toxic, it's taken away from your time. Right. I mean, but there's also this beauty to it where it's like you can kind of, there's like this groupthink where that happens that is able to discern stuff if you're using truth, because you can kind of see in every post, like most of the stuff that I'm looking at, and I've looked at both sides, and it seems like most people are now just kind of either getting it or not getting it. And you could see like that people are almost accidentally getting it. Like I've seen some leftist posts lately, like that are like arguing, like I'd kind of almost want to be like a housewife from the 60s now, from the 50s, because like they had it made. And I've seen so many of those posts, and like, and everybody's like, yeah, that totally makes more sense. And people are like accidentally like uncovering truths because they're just going down the rabbit hole, and they're just like, and with social media, is you're able to like kind of engage with these people, and the truth rises. I mean, and I think that's what scares a lot of people in control. Is it doesn't necessarily scare us, it scares the controllers, because they don't really have anything to do with that, and they try to shut it down when it happens naturally. So the flat Earth movement moved very fast, and I don't know if you're a flat earther. I don't. Frankly, it doesn't matter. But the point though is it moved very fast, and that whole perspective just shifted. And they had to shut it down because it was moving too fast and made too much rational sense. And even if you can debunk it, the whole point though is like what they were saying, their talking points that they've been using for so long were not good. And there's people, I think Owen makes a better case for round earth than a lot of people who are actually just force fed this BS from schools, is because the school proofs have been debunked. So now they need new proofs, which is fine. And I think a lot of people are finding them, but it pushes science ahead because people are going to be able to use technology and share it. And so all of these things are going viral, and it's an exciting time, because I think, I said this in another podcast, but it does ring true. It's just that, before we had like we had writing, like when writing was first invented, who controlled it all? It was the people who were the printing press, right? Of course. And like it was kind of seen as like an exquisite thing to be able to learn how to write and learn how to read, and it was seen as a very upper class thing when it first came out. I feel like the same with internet. It was, it was only for people who could afford computers. Totally. It's like now it's everybody. So I think and that's going to keep going on, where it's like there's this new technology introduced. It's going to be for the upper class, and it's going to be very exquisite. And then all of a sudden, and now we have a new generation of coders coming along too. So you see all these apps like Facebook and Amazon and all these other things. I know people who are our age and younger who can code the crap out of this stuff overnight and make it totally decentralized on a blockchain. These things make me excited, because I'm saying, these things are where the future's heading for independent consumers. I've seen people make deep fakes. I can make deep fakes. Yeah, you've probably seen a couple.
Oh yeah.
But like there's I've made some deep fakes in the past, and they're super easy to make. And if someone like I can do it, someone with a more computer background who's been in it longer can do a way better job. They can write programs super easy. So you have all these like really powerful people coming into the industry that are younger, that are going to be able to rival these things to do it for truth. And if they can be persuaded to have a good lifestyle, they're going to see the negativities of their past mistakes. So I think everybody's going to overall in the younger generation become way more conservative because they've seen the liberal. I think the majority of our generation, the millennials, were very liberal. And I think only, people rebelled against the conservatism that happened in the boomer generation. Now they're going to rebel against the liberals, which is going to make it more conservative naturally. So I'm pretty optimistic about everything.
Yeah, man. I mean, you hit on a lot of good points, and that's the biggest thing. Going back to just these younger generation, is that with the technology becoming more advanced for at least now compared to 30, 40, 50 years ago, but as you said, at a younger age, this is becoming more part of these children's everyday lives.
Oh my gosh. Can I? So
yeah,
there's,
go.
let me interrupt real quick and then you can go back. I swear.
yeah.
I'm sorry. There's like this new trend on TikTok and Instagram Reels or whatever. I've been watching a lot of that lately. It's like this Adult Swim thing. And I'm thinking these people are making better Adult Swim bumps than the actual Adult Swim bumps that happen. Like, like the little segues that go, you've probably seen them. If not, I'm sure you could pull one up. But like, they're like these little clips of like how, after the commercial break, Adult Swim had this little clip in between the actual show. And it was like they put lo-fi music, real chill. And then just you'd see the AS, their logo come in out of nowhere. And it was really smooth. And you have these generation that's like super young and they're doing it for just clout. No money. Yeah. Everybody's doing it for respect. And because it's a trend, and I'm like, these guys are getting a free advertisement out of that, and they're probably doing a better job than a lot of these graphic editors can do. And I'm like, if they could just use that for pursuing truth and for wanting to get the message across on what they believe, and no one's doing it for money. That's another thing too. Is like a lot of this younger generation is going to have free time. They're gonna, they're gonna have the ability. A lot of the people who are getting rich off the stock market and Dogecoin, I mean, they're gonna have a lot of money, but they're gonna want to spread, their truth through the ways that they want. So you're going to see an unconventional use of money. I mean, that Rogan sign was hilarious, dude. I don't think anybody would have done that 10 years ago. It's fun because they have the money, they have a message, they know it's going to go viral. It's like, that's so funny. And it's like, it's perfect to sum up how like the future of just having that physical, ability to create things is important it's going to ripple into the digital world, and then we talk about what's been on my mind lately is just like, you in a world of like you see comments and like I've been noticing a lot too, like just I sometimes I throw up a random comment on a meme I see or whatever, and it's always number one top spot, and I'm like, why is that? And I think the reason is because everybody's become so robotic that when you have some kind of hint of creativity and originality, you immediately launch to the top spot because and that's what the Bears are doing is like as a community is like they're able to introduce originality in their content.
Right.
And what that does is immediately blows it up to number one in the realm, because like you're reflecting your originality that comes from the earth, which is, what we're so attached to, and with farming and all this other stuff, and just create, like you said, being present and not being consumed by all these outside influences and being present in your awareness, going back, that allows you to become more creative because you're getting direct feed from source instead of a regurgitation from what you're seeing online, which is, so it's when you get information from source, you can feed it into the algorithms and immediately it's taken on because it's original. AI can generate what some of these people, and I know there's real people out there leaving these comments, but they're so lazy mentally because they haven't disconnected. They haven't been present in their own lives. They haven't taken a step away from the computers. So what happens is they regurgitate everything they saw on a computer. So an algorithm could replicate all of their actions, But if you
Yep.
feed the algorithm original content, like Joe Rogan's a thumb, Joe Rogan's a thumb, all of a sudden AI will start saying Joe Rogan's a thumb, Joe Rogan's a thumb. Do you know what I mean? So, because
Totally.
that's an original thought, but if you have enough people repeat it and you have the AI start learning, okay, it's not even the AI, it could be algorithm. You know, at this point, AI is so new,
Mhm.
robots are so new, but all these bot comments, like, you know, it's
Yeah.
like the same phrase over and over again. As soon as you just see it and you tweak it a little bit and you add your original spice that says you're human, gives your human ID, boom, people are like, wow, that's cool. That's a cool way to say it, and they'll like
Yeah.
that. So
Dude, well, like, once again, man, you're hitting on so many awesome points, and that was something actually I was gonna even talk about kind of before was that just that is when you come in with an original thought that you're speaking from a place of truth, from honesty, whatever, genuine. What happens is that it's also like a what's the word I'm looking for? It's like an unspoken aware kind of mindset that you're like, I'm willing to take the arrows with just being honest and open. And when you have that and people see that you're putting yourself out there in that way, because it's, again, authentic, people will immediately gravitate to it, good or bad, just because they're going,
oh yeah,
this is somebody actually speaking to
or
us.
bad.
But
Yeah, you're right on that. I mean, that's like another big thing is like when you speak like when you speak unconventional things that are outside left right paradigm, a lot of
Mhm,
people in the right will be mad at you. A lot of people in the left, if you say if you're like that's the thing is like when I was in a band, I was very left leaning. I
mhm,
heavy like you know
yeah.
because like that's where I was in my at that point in my life. I like didn't really have any like Republican values because I didn't really do a lot of work. I was like just kind of bumming around. And a lot of
Mhm,
a lot of the people that I followed, like musician wise, were very left. So I kind of adopted that
totally.
belief. But once I started testing out a couple other, you know, things, when I saw that the pendulum was swinging, you know, and I think you know Owen had said this, but dude, it's crazy how much like unspoken things that me and Owen have in common. I'm sure you do as well, and this whole
Yeah.
community seems to have is like I don't feel like I've shifted very much my views. I started left, I stayed left, and they got more left. So
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
and even Republicans got more left than I do now. So like
Totally.
whereas like a lot of these times like I don't even think my stuff is that right leaning. But a lot of other people would say they do. It
Yeah.
is. Just because
Well,
of how far it shifted. So when feminism got really big, that was another thing. I was like, I saw how toxic, you know, it just randomly accusing people of rape would be, and
mhm,
all these other things that were just going on. And I was like, this is, you know, you have a court of law. You can't just like, this is when cancel culture was just, you know, starting up. And it's
mhm,
like, no, before it was like Twitter was just like chaos shithole of like, you know, just shit posting, like random like thoughts. And I had the most crazy thoughts and then all of a sudden they were being like brought up like, oh, this is so this and we need to cancel this person. And I was like, you know what, I haven't changed my thoughts at all and you guys have just changed with me. So
yeah.
like that's another thing. It's like I don't, when you say something that's true, it's just true, you know. I don't have
Right.
to sit there and like try to change my position every time they change. So
Yeah.
it was one of
Well,
those things where I felt like they were shifting further left and I just stayed where I was, and all of a sudden I was right wing. So it's like
yeah.
it's crazy.
Well, yeah, but that's the other thing too is when you start to establish yourself in some ideas and thoughts, and as you said, if you're seeing the world around you constantly changing and it's becoming so pertinent to you, and just like, wait a minute, just 5 minutes ago you were saying this, and now you're
Yes,
saying
yeah,
this, and it's not even, as you said, it's not like oh complete 180s. Now, similar to you, like very left leaning in many ways, and then I found myself obviously being in New York City, very liberal place, finding myself just being like, well, just let me ask this simple question, like, what matters to me? Like, what do I care about?
yeah,
Because everyone in their 20s, maybe younger, some people now older, is like, well, okay, what is most important to me? What actually matters? And when you ask yourself just that simple but yet complex question, because a lot of people don't know, you start to just, allow yourself to see like, hey, the things that I thought I believed, okay, maybe I really do believe that. And then you realize like,
yeah,
okay, I'm pretty solid with a lot of the things here. And then before you know it, if you're kind of staying true to just by asking yourself what matters to me, who am I, what's the person I want to be, you start realizing is the people who haven't necessarily asked themselves that question, that's the world around you constantly changing. You're going, whoa, what do you like?
yeah.
Where's your foundation? You know what I mean?
Exactly. That's
So
yeah, that's a huge thing.
and I think that's what a lot of us, part of the community is been doing or has done. And,
Right.
a lot of the bears, even that I've talked to before, Owen went through his changes or whatever the case. And by changes, I mean just, the way the world views him, he hasn't really changed. Is people be
Yeah.
like, oh, I've been like this for a long time too. I'm just glad that more people are on that same page, and that's what's really cool is that I would assume, allegedly, a lot of people haven't necessarily changed. It's just they're just becoming more confident or maybe more connected to those truths that they realized earlier on or they're realizing throughout their life. I don't know if that
Right.
makes
And I think even things can shed in the opposite way where it's like the constant refinement of of your belief system is
sense.
fine as long as it's not influenced by external things.
Right.
It comes internal first, then it gets externalized. So like you'll
Yeah.
see a lot of things that Owen changed his opinion on, but it's either because he didn't have a very strong rooted opinion on it, like some of the
Yep.
early Dennis Prager videos he has. He's like, I was always the same person. I thought they were doing good, but now I have a
Right.
deeper understanding of the system underneath. So like it actually the peeling off of layers of your belief system comes from a deeper rooted understanding of where those top layer beliefs come from. So
Yep.
I think it's really fascinating. I've certainly changed in many ways, and I continue to. That's the thing is like I think it's healthy to continue to change. A lot of people are
Yep.
like, why
Totally.
why are you? I think it's weird if people don't change. To be frank, I mean like it's like
Yep.
it's like you're
Dude.
presented with new information. You have to go reevaluate with what
Yeah.
you thought in the first place. Otherwise, you're just. I mean, there's no growth there, and
Right.
that's the same thing with a plant. Like you grow, you got to trim the bad
Hmm.
leaves off.
Yep.
Before you have it grow. You need to reallocate all the good energy to the plants that are alive and the plants that have more stable foundations. So
Dude, I couldn't agree. And just to kind of piggyback on that, because one of the things with my job being that I work in obviously the fitness industry for so long is I'm always trying to when we're talking about these things that people maybe aren't grasping or not willing to hear or they can't put the pieces together is trying to bring it to something that they know. And one of the things that majority of people know regardless of where you fall on the spectrum, is that they want to look good. A lot of people want to look good. They want to go to the gym. They want to work out. Everyone is saying they need a trainer. So I go, okay, well, how does this pertain then? Is just that is going, okay, you want to change your body and you're coming to me to help you see those results, but yet you're not willing to take this new information and use it to your advantage. That's like somebody saying, hey, I'm going to teach you how to do, work on your squats to get, stronger, a toner, legs or whatever, and you're not using that information or you're not willing to ingest it, work with it, move through it. So similar, like you said, that's why growth throughout your whole life is important. There is no such thing as just maintaining, because even when we say we're maintaining or we're plateauing, more often than not, your body might feel like it's not making changes, but there's still the mental, there's the physical, the spiritual, and quite frankly, you're always making the changes. It's just whether or not you're willing to embrace them and accept them and see how far they take.
right.
Do you know what
And
I mean? Like,
no, I
so
totally agree. And
yeah,
like that's the same thing with a lot of nutrition that you talk about like this. I mean, since we're the same age, I know for a fact that you know
it's
about
so
the food pyramid.
oh totally,
And that shit was so funny because that was shoved down our throats like every day
totally,
of our lives. And I'm sure a lot of other people but like you grow up and you develop and that's totally flipped upside down. We were told to eat
yeah,
tons of bread. Now bread's seen as like terrible for you.
mm-hmm,
And like that was the majority of what you're supposed to be eating. And like I think
right,
fruits were like a third tier up. I'm like, because they have a lot of sugar. I'm like, it's a different
yeah,
kind of sugar. And like now my brother went to school for a lot of nutrition and he studied
mm-hmm,
a lot when it came to that. So he's told me a lot about how nutrition works and
yeah,
it's not the same. You can't look at a carb in a fruit versus a carb in a bread. And I don't know
totally,
all the science behind it, but what I do know is that I was taught something in the past
mm,
and now it's time to reevaluate. And that's science though.
good.
And what I think is
That's
fascinating
right.
is like people can't look at science and be like, that was wrong 10 years ago. What could be wrong now? It's like,
Yep.
what do we got wrong now? And that's what I always look at through the lens of like, what is some stuff that is questionable now? And you can see hints of it. And like,
Mm-hmm.
once you start and you get older, you can never do this when you're a kid. So that's why I think kids are not supposed to have such strong opinions. Like, dude, if you're in high school or below, I think having a strong outlook on life is very like concerning to me if you do.
Yeah.
And like I always thought that was just like there'd be people in grade school who were reciting, talking points for Bush, and I was like,
Yeah.
you got to be kidding me! Like you don't know
Yeah.
anything about the political landscape, and
Totally.
you're all you can do is repeat what your parents have taught you. So
Yep.
but
I mean,
once you start seeing patterns throughout your life and you say, okay, now I can realize, and that's again, I keep saying the word discernment, but I love that word because it really does it places the responsibility not on them to be correct or to not lie to you, but it places the responsibility on you to
yep.
discern whether they're lying to you or telling the truth. And you can start noticing patterns that way. And you can
Right.
really just, that's where the truth comes in, is through discernment, not through relying on everybody to tell you the truth, because they're never going to, because there's incentives. There's people who feel bad when they tell you the truth. There's people who have built up a lot of things based on a lie, and if they tell you the truth, all the underlying foundation comes out. So like, oh
Mhm.
my god, it was so funny. I was watching this, I don't know if you know the guy, it's like John Stroessel or something, I don't know how to pronounce it.
No.
It's very like right wing like capitalist. And he was so funny because like he kind of like accidentally discovered that like NASA's kind of bullshit.
Hmm.
And like the way he did was like, but he didn't say it because he's so like, he's an older guy, but
Yeah.
he was like, look at NASA, like they've went to the moon once, but they've not done anything since, and I cannot
Yeah.
believe it. And then I'm like, don't you like he's so against like government like funded projects because he thinks they always fail.
Hmm.
And his point though was like NASA had a strong goal and they went to the moon, but they've never been back since because I'm like, why do you think they'd go once and never go back? And secondly, you think every foundation, like you think all this government funded things are terrible, and they're like just bloated, and they put
Hmm.
on too many costs, and which he's right about. That NASA does do that, where they over employ
Right.
people. It's like an employment scam.
Yeah. Yeah.
And like you have these things, and like, he's telling you all that, and he's so like right on those things, but he's just fundamentally wrong on that one because he believes the lie. So it's like if you took
Yeah.
that down, you'd be completely right in your theory, where it's like if NASA was this big bloated employment scam that's supposed to just be for bureaucracy, then you're right that we never went to the moon. They didn't actually accomplish anything. They've just been
Hmm.
constantly taking your tax dollars. So you're right on
Right.
that. But he couldn't accept that because he's kind of boomer in that
Right.
aspect. So he's like bought into the whole lie. So, but it was funny. Like I see these people who are like right there. I made a post too where it's like like this guy is like, or this girl is like, they gave this 100 tampons to this one girl to go for
Oh,
six
yeah. Yeah.
days, and like it's so funny because you can see them like get it, like they're like, these people are rocket science, they're supposed to be the smartest people in the world. And I saw
Right.
my comment section, a bunch of people coping hard. They're like, no, well, they could have been doing their secret sneaky, they're so genius that they could have used it for something else, like they
Yeah.
could have
Yeah.
used the tampons for parachutes if they want. I'm like,
Yeah.
guys, you're being ridiculous. Like they're not doing that. It's just, it was a stupid mistake. Like you're so close.
Well,
But yeah.
well, what I think this all kind of wraps into, and it is important for whether people are part of the bear community or not. This pertains to everybody. Is that what's happening more than anything is that people are finding themselves trying to figure out who they are in life, and they're trying to find themselves in tribes. But we're in a society where tribes, we're told, falling into tribes isn't necessarily a good thing,
Oh
unless
my
it's
god.
like a work tribe or it's something in regards to an agenda. You're fighting for something, and because everyone else around you is evil, or you know what I mean. Like this is where people are just trying to fit in, and I say this from my own experience as well, because people would say that, oh, what about the bear community? It's like, you're part of the tribe. Like I had a buddy of mine who I care about, and he was laying hard because he knew, I was in this bear community, and he was like saying this stuff about, oh, and I was like, you need to stop, man. And it wasn't, and it was one of those things because he was naive. He didn't know much about anything. He was only going off of the narratives, and I was like, I
Exactly.
go,
Yeah.
and I told him, and I go, listen, man, do you know why I'm in this? And he was like, no. And I go, so you're making an assumption, and you're telling me how I see the world, and you haven't asked me a single question. And the thing was, and obviously I explained to him, I was like, it's about me being a better version of myself, taking responsibility. I go,
Yes.
and,
Yeah.
and I go, and that's a problem to you? And he goes, well, what about the other stuff? I go, we're not, that has nothing to do with me, man. I go, this is the part that I'm drawn to. I
Yes.
go,
Yeah.
so yes, in that regard, absolutely. And this is the thing is that a lot of people are trying to find their tribes, and that what happens is you just said is you bring some information, and that takes someone away from the tribe that they might feel they're a part of. And a big tribe right now is that victim mentality, and it's not about putting people who are in that victim mentality down. It's really, from my point, is just going like, look, you can choose to be there, but no, there's alternatives. And I think that's what Owen's been doing more of, and everyone else has been doing. And I think
totally.
for me, it just in my heart is like, this is the right thing to do, because it's going, I don't want to keep you down. I'm not here to put you down. I want to lift you up. I want to lift up. As we said earlier, when we're all on that same wavelength,
Yes.
I'm feeding off of your energy, you're feeding off mine. And if you're going out there and you're crushing and you're doing the best that you could possibly do, and you're willing to share that with me, or you just have so much to give in that regard, energy wise, guess what? I would love to be a part of that. And it becomes a win-win.
Yeah.
And so that's the biggest thing is a lot of people are trying to find their tribe, or they're realizing maybe subconsciously, and this is just my opinion, that the tribe that they've been a part of isn't for them, and it's not what they really want to be.
There's one giant tribe right now, and that's the social media conglomerates. That's the narratives that has been instilled upon us since birth. That's the media that's been here for like almost 100 years now, if not more. That's been the American media, and that's just been propelling. Dude, I've had a couple of posts like this too, but I've been reevaluating, some of the old movies I used to watch. I'm like, this is so weird. Why did my parents let me watch Back to the Future that was about like some pedophile? Like, that was insane to me, because like looking back at it, when I was like flying a Delta flight and I was like, watch this on Delta, I'm like, this is so like, I couldn't imagine with like, dude, I think if I'm not wrong, you got into some film stuff, so you know about this, but like so some film like when you're doing film work, like the last thing I'm actually huge into film. I do like a lot of camera. I do like, I got some nice cameras. I know how to like set all my settings up and everything. And I love to do videos of my family and other stuff like that, and just kind of like post them online and just improve my work. But like when I think about it though, I'm like, it's kind of funny, but like I never sit down with my group of friends and be like, okay guys, we need to do a sex scene right now. Like, I just wouldn't do that. Like, I just think it's weird. And like, I would never write a plot where I'm going back and like, making out with my mom. Like, that's, to me, is like something like I would never with my friends and buddies sit down in high school and be like, here guys, they'd look at me like I'm fucking insane. And the fact that we look at these like celebrities and stuff, and we're like, oh, that's awesome that they made that movie. I'm like, dude, imagine if you made that with your buds. Like, you'd never want to see it. And that's another thing too, is like with liberal media, I'm surprised that so many based people who I know that are like not liberals still watch this crap, because I'm like, dude, you have to realize that like these are art school kids who have been, they're outlawed, like who've been made fun of their entire life, and all of a sudden they're widely acclaimed because they've worked on a movie. And it's like, that's another thing that's weird for me, is like, all those kids that got bullied for being so weird are now socially accepted because they got a Grammy. It's like, or I'm like, they're still weird. And like, if you look at them through the lens of like, if they were hanging out with your family, you'd be like, that dude's a fucking weirdo.
Totally.
And like, and I think people need to be called out on it. And like, I think it's a weird shift to where like people suddenly see them as like in a new light when they shouldn't. I think that's just like how the Hollywood stories even been told, is like, you go to Hollywood, you get big, and then you go back and you stick a middle finger to all your hometown people and say, I'm better than you. And it's like, I've succeeded. What have you done? And it's like, that is not how the reality works. If you came back to your home, you'd be like, people would still be like, what is wrong with that guy? That guy is still weird. He's still wearing makeup. He's still doing this. He's still writing weird scripts where he's like banging his mom. Like, those are just things that like would be so weird to me. So, I don't know how I got into that rant, but that was like one of the things that like, I just feel like there's like some kind of flip when it happens when you get too big in Hollywood, where people think that they're going to be accepted, and sometimes they are, but they shouldn't be. They should be looked down upon as like, this is weird content. And I guess we got talking about that because like, sharing content and kind of creating within the bear community. It's like, I don't think I'd ever sit down and like make a song that's like super, I don't know, like about promiscuous stuff or anything like that, because it's just not what would align with what I want to sing to my family or sing to my friends. You want to be honest with that. And like, That's kind of stuff that I respect when it comes to the integrity of the music. And that's another thing too, is like there's nothing to win with the community and the tribe that we're in. It's like when you try
Mhm.
to go and you win in the tribe of, and this, I guess this is how we got the big tribe of media. It's been there forever. When you try to
Right.
win in that tribe and you try to connect to that tribe, you end up failing because it's too big. It'll never recognize you unless you do the most disgusting things.
Yep.
And two is it's taking energy from you, and it's
Totally.
they have the power structure already set up. So by building your own tribe, you're kind of allowing yourself to be with the people that you like, and also be
Yep.
rewarded and celebrated with the morals that make sense to you. So you don't want to be celebrated in a moralist society that's been set up, which people have been conditioned through advertising and marketing to just love and worship these art pieces that they shouldn't, and they see it listed for $1 million, and they're like, and when they talked about, I didn't know that art was so, used for just money laundering before.
Oh
I
yeah.
was like, what's going on with that? And then when I grew up and I kind of determined that that was like a money laundering scam, it was one of those things where it's like, there's no inherent value in this period blood piece that everybody says should be worth $2 billion.
Yeah.
It's really just some rich person, with money laundering issues. Same with the NFTs. That was a huge discussion. I'm like, these are people literally just laundering money right in front of
Yeah.
you, and you're not realizing it. It has nothing to do with the art that comes behind it.
No.
So
Well, what was happening before is that there were, like everything else, it was trying to be more secretive because there were more, like I would just say, men out there that were open to fight against it. So they had to be a little bit more secretive about these things. They actually had to create nice art, in sense that, as what we've seen with the demasculine of men in society today, or over the last however many years, what you're seeing is now they realize that no one, or they think that no one's going to step up, and they think that no one's going to say anything or do anything about it. So then now they're just literally, like you said, they're just putting invisible paintings and saying, hey, look, it's worth 17 million, 17,000,
right,
17 million. And this is the thing is, as you said, they're doing it right in front of us and nobody's saying anything. But the fact is to your point earlier, is that people they're just going, and it's what Owen says and what a lot of people said, we're just not playing your game anymore. We just don't, we
yeah,
don't need to. We don't want to.
right. And I think that scares a lot of the people in power. I don't think the people in power are doing very well, by the way. I think a lot of people think that, they're, I think as more people wake up into this conspiracy mindset, and dude, it's not even uncommon anymore. Like, if you were
Yeah.
to tell me that, like, we'd be having this discussion back in high school and say, like,
No.
hey, like,
Yeah.
I don't think we would, because, like, I wasn't onto it, and I don't think a lot of other people were. But
No.
there's people that I know every single day that I'm having this discussion with that are like that have never had this thought that these conspiracies have been going on,
Yeah.
but everybody's waking up to it. There is a mass awakening that's happening.
Yeah.
And I think people are starting to, create these tribes in themselves that are like detaching from the system, and they're growing these tribes. And the more they do that, and it's not just the Bears. I think the Bears is like it's just a sub community of many other sub communities that are emerging. Some good, some extremely toxic. Like I think there's gonna be tribes that are toxic as hell. I think for every bear that's made, there's an anti-bear, and I think that's the gammas. There's gonna be different people that emerge out of this thing. Because like every time you see a positive awakening, there's also like this huge kickback. So it just kind of splits, in my opinion. That's what I've witnessed, is like when you see a huge positive charge with Beartaria and all these crushing people working for like low wages just because they want to see this happen. And that's the thing too, is like when you like strong men, you said something very interesting that I want to kind of accentuate that you said, is like strong men create value. Like and that's true throughout all the time. Like, but if you have weak men who just want to pay for jet skis and pay for, yachts and whatever, and they don't want to pay for actual building, for, investment in infrastructure, all these things that are like actual worth, and they can pass on to their children, land, all these things that we talk about, even, and you got to put your, just knowledge in general, like reading about how the world works and learning it and passing on to your kids, passing on to other people. All these things need to that's the value. And people, I think eventually, I don't think it's happened yet, but I think eventually people will take their monetary value that they used to give in a bunch of like things like art and like yachts, maybe a Ferrari. People will see, and dude, you already see with Kanye. You see Kanye, he's the one who's building that just this giant, like, isn't he creating this self-sustaining thing? And I don't know what state it's in. But it's, dude, his story parallels the Bears in a really weird way. you know, because like he's like on that same thing. He's doing it in his own way, but he's like building the same compound. You know, he's trying to make it like because he knows that he's got enough money, and the Ferraris don't interest him anymore. You know, like at some point, the nice car isn't gonna get your rocks off anymore. It's gonna be like the actual value that comes from families, comes from morality. How do you leave a impact on your society, not just by owning a nice car? It's about, you know, getting real values. And like you're going to see a shift where it's like there's going to be a monetary shift from these nice products that come from capitalist societies, and they're going to see like that is going to be incentivized by morality, and people want to see, people are going to want to crowdfund, going to want to be around people. I already talked to my wife about this every day, and she's not even super into the bear community. She's got a Beartari Times account because she loves the flowers and the gardening advice, but she's not super into it. But she's even saying like, I would just love to live around a community of like-minded people. I'm tired of living next to people who I don't know what they believe. It doesn't feel like a community when you can't have a group sense of values. And you know, talked about in New York too. It's like, I don't even know what that experience was like because I've never been like in the city, but like you look around and you have people who have vastly different opinions, and some people love that. For me, it's something that I would prefer not to have. I want a place where I can walk by and know that I have the same opinions as these people. And you know, that's just because like then you know who you can trust around your community. If you have a group of trusting people in your community, you can do more things with that, you know, instead of having that fear that this person might be some wacko who's on TikTok, you know, flash. And this happened in our community too. And we live in a pretty rural place in Atlanta. And but like we had some person like flashing the kids in our community, not the kids, but like they were just, you know, lifting up. Yeah. And it's like sexual misconduct. Like, and it was written all over our, you know, our HOA emails. And I'm like,
oh, wow.
You just don't want to hear about that. Like, and even if it's small like that, but like, you just want a community that has the reflective morality of that you do. So, and I'm totally for that. So,
yeah. But dude, I mean, what is interesting, I would say, from kind of going off that, because I'm with you, would love to be in a community that has similar views, and you know that. But at the same time, I will say, kind of like I said, similar to Owen, is that I've been fortunate to become kind of like my own day walker. And what it's actually trying to find the positive in these types of situations is going, the amount of interactions I've had with people that we haven't necessarily gone into the deep rabbit holes of things, but just being me and the person that's willing to be wrong, growing from my mistakes, you know, just constantly trying to be a better person, you know, closer to God, all those things. I've come into contact with so many people just through being me, from their words, not mine, is people being able to say like, hey man, thank you for those things that you said, or thank you for this. I've been trying to do more of this in my life, and I've been trying to do that. And I'm not the only person that they've said that they get it from, but just being a part of that, facilitating that. And as we were saying from the beginning, of just being present with self and just trying to be true to yourself, that's all you can do in life. And being around people with such vast different views, not knowing who believes in what, whatever the case is, it's allowed me at least to be more comfortable in those settings, because I go, if I'm around it, yeah, people might not agree with me, but if I'm just being myself and I'm being true, I know my heart, I know my intentions, you know, I'm now trying to follow, you know, more of the path with God, and just trying to be just the person and the people that, you know, Jesus said it himself. Was like, hey, don't worship me, just be like me, and then you will be better. You know, I'm paraphrasing. It's just realizing is that that's all it takes, from my experiences, for people to start, you know, you plant those seeds with others, and then people plant those with you. And this goes back to our point of just that growing with one another. And guess what? Some people, it meant nothing, and you know, life moved on and whatever, and that's okay.
But it's so beautiful when you could see someone connect with you, you know, and like change their opinions too. And like, you know, when you can be that source of light for someone else,
right?
You know, like I think it's something that's so masculine, that thing where it's like, I think it's very feminine to kind of shift around and play protective and, you know, kind of shift your opinions based on who you talk to. I think it's extremely masculine to come into, you know, a party or to a workplace and come into, you know, wherever you're having your social gatherings, and just stick your ground and don't lead with it. I think a lot of people lead with their beliefs, but when it gets brought up, you know, to not back down and to bring up your valid points and talk confidently on it. And I think it's something that I've been a part of those conversations where I've had people double take me on my opinion and be like, I don't understand that opinion. They've never talked to someone who has that opinion half the time.
Mm.
Like for flat earthers, they're like, dude, I've brought up flat earth in my office, and people are so like, first they're just like, what the hell is wrong with you?
Oh,
And then
totally.
you talk to them for like a couple minutes, and they're like, dude, I kind of want to look at these videos. Like
Yeah,
I kind of want to go on the train that you're on because it's like kind of fun. Like
totally.
it seems like it's like more and there's people who aren't like that, but I think finding those one or two people that can grow with you
Yep.
and who you can kind of, once they approach you with it, you can speak your opinion, speak it confidently, show them the logic behind what you think,
Yep.
and just stay confident with it and like the rationale. Hey, half the time they haven't put a lot of thought into what
Exactly.
they thought. They've recited it from what a late night show host has said about it. They've
Right.
it's like a
Well,
lot of times, like, dude, that's how the vaccines are. They push the vaccine so hard on late night TV. I didn't really realize it until I went to my grandma's house, and I saw like some late night shows that she was cranking up on her
yep.
TV, and I was like, oh my god, these people are so stupid. We need to baby walk them. These anti-vaxxers,
Wow.
nothing of substance, but just like, these people are just, they don't know anything. We gotta give them can't. And like meanwhile, they're
Mm.
literally bribing people who
Yeah,
need to
yeah,
take the vaccine with fries and a cheeseburger or
yeah, yeah.
whatever, free
Donuts.
cookies. I'm like, yeah, donuts. I'm like, dude, you're literally projecting your own insecurities onto other people who don't like, people who don't want the vaccines, just don't want to get involved with it. So, you
Oh
know,
yeah.
I brought that up at work, and it's it's been fine. Like, a lot of people will first do double check, and then they'll be like, well, I didn't know that was in the vaccine. I didn't know that this wasn't. I didn't know they test. I didn't know they
Yeah.
diagnosed for that. Oh, that's a sexually transmitted disease. Why would you need a vaccine? Vaccinate against that on birth? That makes no sense. It's
Yeah.
like, dude, I think, and dude, my new craziest thought is just like the vaccines have something to do with the obsessive amount of screen time / autism that a lot of people have. We
I
have
agree.
two vaccinated kids. Our one unvaccinated kid cannot watch TV for the life of her. She's like, like we've tried to put TV in front of her, to calm her down. Just totally swipes it away, is doing her own
Yeah.
thing. She does, like we were sitting in a restaurant, and some like old boomer was like, "Oh, I know it'll calm her down." He put a TV in front of her. She just swatted it right away. It didn't
Yo, yeah, yeah.
didn't calm her down at all. So I'm like, I think there's some connection there, but I think a
Totally.
lot of just that screen time is just because of some kind of chemical imbalance where like you need this impulse all the time where it's like it feeding in of information.
Right.
But
Well, it's almost as if, like, as you said, most people are glued to the TV. It's this that you're like a fly with the light, and that's
yeah,
just
yeah.
attached to,
It
and
doesn't
that's
seem
where,
natural though that we overconsume so much light, like flickering
yeah,
rates. Like the flicker rates are insane. Like
dude.
that's not good. The blue light that constantly comes into your eyes. I hate how much I'm on my phone, and like the
Yeah.
fact that she's like cannot look at it directly. She cannot, like, and she's a
Yeah.
baby, and like a lot of all of our other kids were like, we'd put on Coco Melon or whatever those
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
shows were,
We use that
and they
for
just they'd watch it for like, I mean they're not obsessed, but we'd put it in front of them for like a little bit, and like, yeah, she's absolutely not into it, and I love that. And the more
yeah.
it's the only thing I need left is the uncircumcised, unvaxxed baby boy is like, so we're
Yep,
shooting for. I think we're gonna stop at that, but I'm gonna keep going for
dude.
till then.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, so I actually am gonna have to run here, but I would love to do this again, dude.
Yeah,
This is
yeah.
so small world, man. But is it cool if we set something up for another time, man?
Yeah, sure. I got a lot more to talk about. There's some stuff I want to cover on just kind of like going more into the tribe, the
Totally.
tribe, because like I think that's huge is because a lot of capitalism just is it just kind of de-incentivizes this tribe mentality. It's like,
Hmm.
rat race, get up to the top, and that's really not biblical. It's like there is some
No.
community to the Bible where it's like give to your fellow man, like don't have too much greed, don't say like, and the Muslims get it, but like a lot of the Christians like that have been raised in this capitalist
Yep.
society view tribes as like something that should be it's not as incentivized because community isn't as big. So you want your tribes to be given to you through some kind of product, and
Yep.
where natural people, like nature creates tribes organically, and like I think we're inorganically being kind of scrubbed of this tribe mentality. I think it's coming back.
Oh yeah,
So
dude.
that's something I could probably talk on a little bit more, but
Well, if we may, I would love to set something
Yeah.
up another time, and we'll dive right into it, man. I love where your head's at. I like all the ideas, man. I just enjoy listening and taking it
Yeah.
in.
No, the
And
same. Yeah, it's crazy
yeah, man.
how everybody kind of gets it on this side of the web. I love talking to everybody about their opinions, and everybody has like such. Even if it's not something I think about, it's something that I usually leave knowing like 3 or 4 more things that I have even thought about,
Yep.
before talking to them. So I love the constant introspective that everybody has in the bear community. So it's awesome.
Oh, yeah, man. Well, it's like you said, it's just it's that growth, being willing to
Yes.
take in new information and growing with it. I'm right there with you, man. But if possible, where can people find you? What are you willing to give out for?
Yeah, dude. Well, all Anchor Bear is everywhere. So we got YouTube, Instagram, Anchor_Bear. I'm searchable on YouTube. I have a video that went up to 24K, which was awesome. So I think I have some kind of,
Nice.
dominance on YouTube. Yeah. And I know, yeah, the How Dare You song also went pretty viral, but like I think
That
it was
was
at
so
100K.
funny.
Yeah, yeah. Dude, I cannot wait. Sometimes I'm like, I get in this like weird zone. I'm like, I want to beat that, and then that's so like not
Yeah.
the way I should do it though. Because if I wanted to do that, you'd go like, oh, I gotta
Yeah.
market it to Trump, I got to do the keyword search. Then it
Yeah,
just
yeah.
spirals down, and you're not with truth. Then it's like
Yeah.
you're just chasing an algorithm, and you got to
Totally.
do it the other way. You got to have them come after you. So yeah, like for a lot of the songs will be like kind of more inside bear jokes. Like we just did the "Pandas Are Fake and Gay" song with
That was hilarious.
dude.
I
Oh
love
my
it.
god, that guy is hilarious. Who did the song with
Yeah,
he like
board game bear.
he what?
Board
Yeah,
game.
Board Game Bear. Yeah, he came to me. He's like, dude, he's the dude who runs I think it's Rebel Joe
Yeah,
Coffee.
yeah, oh yeah.
So good. I love his brand and like all of his artwork that he does. When I see it I'm like, I got to get some of that. I've not ordered
Good.
one yet, full
It's
disclaimer,
good.
but I will be ordering I'll be ordering some by the end of the week. I
Dude,
love
that's
supporting, yeah, like Woodshop Bear too. Like love supporting all these crushers that are coming out, dude. And
Dude.
that's the thing. It's like there's no excuses for these people. They're just people who work. No,
Yep.
so that they don't complain about shit. They're making it themselves, and that's where I want to get eventually. It's just kind of like, and that I have this Anchor Tone Studio coming out, which is I'm going to be able to offer beats to people in the
Oh,
bear
cool.
community to rap
Sweet.
over to what?
That's sweet.
Yeah. I'm still working. We're gonna release the website coming up. I got some help from some bears that are helping out with the website, and I got
Awesome, man.
I think I got Nero to do the logo, which is sick. I love the logo. I'm branding everything in here. We're just gonna do some some extra touch ups to the studio, take some pictures, and we're gonna get it available so people can kind of get beats. I work with Red Pill Rooster to do a lot of the production on the audio behind their stuff and kind of match levels and do all the vocal production, then also just like the background music. I love that gig. I'd love to do more and like have that be a paid thing if people want to reach out to me for like intros to YouTube videos, backgrounds. So that's kind of like where I see myself going.
That's
with
awesome. Well,
music.
we'll definitely have to chat because is with the podcast and stuff. I'm looking to get a good intro and outro.
Yeah, dude, definitely. And like that's the thing too, is like if we can as a group not see it as like so much money, like we're
Right.
gonna send these people money, but it's like money is just like it should be a currency, like a wave. Like it shouldn't just be like it should be passed around the community. It shouldn't necessarily be something that like you bogart and say I'm gonna throw into this. And I've been getting super into stocks lately. But dude, and a lot of my family has been getting into stocks too. But the thing with that is you're throwing money at giant corporations. You're not throwing it to your friends. You're not throwing it to your buddies to invest. You're investing in some huge evil corporation. If you throw it to people who it's like then it's like I pay Nero, he pays this guy, he's doing his website for this dude, and then it's just like it's so helpful to do it like that, and like that's how you succeed.
Right.
Keep it in the community. So I'd love to do some.
Dude, that's awesome. But what's just to kind of real quick on that is you're also not just getting somebody that you know and trust, but you also know they're gonna give 100%.
Oh, totally, yeah.
And the people that they bring on, it's the same.
And there's
thing.
accountability there too. Yeah, it's like there's no. I've hit some shady freelancers. You want to do the right thing, but you also don't. And then you're relying on trust that comes from the internet. You gotta have someone on the internet verify them and give them ratings, and then it's just I like doing it in the community because you've seen their work, You're
Hmm.
accountable to that person. You want to make them happy, and you want to make them like you use you again, and show the example to the community. So it's like it's a win-win. I
Yeah.
love working in within the. I've had a
I
couple bears come to me and like ask for certain things, and I'm like, I always make sure they like it. I always make sure I give my 110% on like the
Yeah.
beats or the whatever we do with them, and yeah, it's and like even paying, I'm like, I know if I pay for a hat from Woodshop Bear, or which I'm wearing right now, if you could
Hmm.
see me, but or like
Nice. Yeah.
Red Pill Rooster merch or Mountain Bear merch, it's like, dude, Mountain
Yeah.
Bear is such a legend, but like I
Yeah.
love his merch. I got a ton of it. I'm gonna get some stickers around the studio, but
It's
like
awesome, man.
you just know when you're handing it to them, like that's going in a good place. It's going to a good person who's gonna raise a good family. It's like you
Yeah.
don't know where the other money's going. You pay some Fiverr guy, or when you pay,
Yeah.
for your McDonald's, like it's kind of like you don't know
Yeah.
where that's going. Like if you buy, dude, I started buying eggs from like the person down the street because I know them. It's like we
Hmm.
live in this farm community. I don't get my eggs from the supermarket anymore, and like all the tomatoes we grow is like from outside. So it's like
Awesome.
we're slowly stepping into that like community only life, and it's like that's how it was. Like we talk about nutrition, it's like my wife is huge into that, and she's also talking about like microbiomes. Dude, I could go on forever. I know you got to end it, but like
Dude, no
like
worries,
the microbiome of like your house, and like how all the soil is like what you need for your like dude, your body's so attuned with the land that it's on that you
dude.
can't like separate like. And dude, that's the thing that you talked to Boulderson, right? I
Hmm.
mean, he's probably huge into that too, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, because he like, I mean,
Oh yeah.
what?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, like I said, we can go on for hours about it,
Oh,
but
totally.
like I said, I hate to cut it short
No,
because
no,
I
no. I
go
gotcha.
on for hours, but I have to help with the little guy. But
Oh, yeah.
let's set something up for another time. We'll go into all this stuff, man.
Yeah, we
And
can go and dude, we haven't even scratched the surface on what's going on with the unbearables and
oh
all
yeah,
the cool stuff that's going on there, and like
yeah,
there's so much potential to talk about.
yeah, man. Well, let's like I said, let's make it happen, and we'll just let it all come out then too. We'll definitely get into the unbearable stuff for sure, dude.
Sweet.
I'm looking forward to it.
Awesome, man. Thanks for having
Awesome,
me on.
brother. All right.
All
Well,
right,
everyone
see ya.
else, have a wonderful day,
All right, you too,
and
man.
all right, we'll talk to you.
All
All right.
right, see ya.